Welcome back to the second episode of the Into the Chicane podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Tashia, and with me today we have
Alicia. Hey, everyone.
we're so excited to be chatting about F1 again this week. Alicia, what are your thoughts on Australia last week?
Wow, what a race. Okay, let's first of all start with talking about how this was maybe one of the most exciting F1 races I've seen ever, considering I'm a new fan to the sport. Just like the constant overtakes. There was some drama in qualifying, which we'll get into in a little bit. It was really unclear even after the first like 10 to 12 laps, who would win. And I don't think we've seen that from a race in quite some time. So if this is how the new regs are looking, I'm really excited for the season ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Going into this season, I think I was really skeptical on what it was going to be like with the new regulations and how teams were going to cope. And we'll get into it a little bit of who seems to be doing better than who's not. But yeah, it was exciting, and it feels like it's been a long time since F1 races have actually been exciting. Having the smaller cars, having the overtake mode, like the boost that they're getting and stuff. Like it's exciting again. And I wasn't sure it was going to be.
Yeah, agreed. And I think this is just a taste of what's to come. And I think as drivers start to get more and more familiar with these new modes, we'll start to see them utilize them to their fuller extent. And hopefully that just means more and more exciting races for us. Maybe let's get into like a quick recap of the highlights. So starting with our podium. So we had George Russell taking the win.
The Mercedes in
So
the back.
exciting. First of many, I think, for
I would agree.
Mercedes and Russell
I
in
think so
particular.
too. Yeah, I'm really glad my guess was right last week. My prediction on who was gonna win. Um, Batting 100 here, so
Yeah,
hopefully we
actually,
can keep the
we
momentum
need to
up.
shout you out for that. You knocked that prediction out of the park, and meanwhile, I cursed Oscar Piastri, so sorry, buddy.
I don't
Felt
think
a
it was
little
you. I
bad.
think it's the Australian Grand Prix. It's just cursed for any
Yeah,
Aussie
let's go with
driver. So
that.
it wasn't you.
We'll get him next time, Oscar. B27 is our year. Yeah. So Russell in P1, followed by Kimi Antonelli in P2. Great result for him. And then we had Leclerc in P3. We have a Ferrari on the podium.
It's happening.
Incredible.
It's happening. The Ferrari's ready. It's just on the bottom shelf. It's ready to move up. Um,
Yeah,
Incredible. Like,
it's here to compete.
yeah. And I'll bite my tongue. I know last week I said, I don't know, I think Leclerc should leave Ferrari because he's never going to win a championship with Ferrari, but it was a good start. So we'll see, how the season turns out for him with Ferrari, but it was a really good start to the season for Leclerc and Ferrari as a team.
100%. And dare I say, even a better start than I would have expected. Like there were so many moments where Leclerc was overtaking Russell. He had an amazing start off the top, going into the first corner, and they were really both battling for first. I think if the race had been a little bit longer, potentially we could have seen that top three shuffle around a bit more. So not only is Ferrari looking better than last year, I would say they're even looking like competitive in the constructors fight, which is so exciting. Don't know if it's possible that they'll overtake Mercedes, but they're keeping it really interesting. And I mean, that's a huge step up from where we were last season. So I'll take that for sure.
I agree. I think Ferrari's one, pitfall is that Ferrari just can't do strategy. I don't know what it is about Ferrari and strategy and making really stupid calls sometimes. I am baffled as to why they would not have pit under the virtual safety car. It doesn't make any sense to me as to what was the logic behind that decision. Because if they did, I think both Ferraris had a fighting chance for podium and dare I say a double podium.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think what's even worse about that is there was a second VSC, and the Ferraris, I think, had just passed the pit lane entry. And then by the time they had come back around, because the accident was so close to the pit lane, it was closed. So they didn't even get a second crack at fixing their mistake. But I mean, that's sports, right? Like you have to be ready to capitalize. And even Hamilton, I think, said it on the radio. One of us should have pit right then. Like we shouldn't have Hamilton running race strategy. This is a world class, supposed to be a world class Formula One team. So they do need to clean up their act a little bit. It's just messy when you see things like that. And we're early in the season. So, yes, lower stakes. But as we get further and further in, Ferrari needs to tighten up there, I'd say.
I think some of the other interesting stuff to come out of last weekend were, I mean, Verstappen crashing in Q1. Um, I was not I was not expecting that. Like I think we weren't 100% sure of how the Red Bull is going to do this year. Um, but clearly Verstappen and that car do not seem to work well together.
Yeah, hugely shocking, and, I mean, and credit to him because he was able to come back up the grid. I think he finished P6, I wanna say, so it's really only Verstappen is capable of recovering like that, but he's obviously, like, the best driver on the grid, arguably, if not of all time, potentially, in the next couple years, so it's just a bit of a waste of talent if they're not able to get the car right this season because this is a guy that should be competing for the championship every year. So hopefully they get that figured out because it doesn't feel right to see him so far back.
Yeah, and I mean we saw what happened with Isaac as well, right? Where he qualified really well, right? He qualified P3 if I'm not mistaken, right? Like he was up there
Yeah.
and then it his car just exploded. Like all of a sudden there was just like
Yeah.
the engine just I don't even know what happened, right? Like it overheated or something happened there and that was it. That was his race. So I don't know what's going on at Red Bull, but they need to figure it out here pretty quick.
Yeah, agreed. Hugely disappointing for Isaac. He had done so well up until that point. Even in free practice, he was quite consistent from what I saw. And, given all the problems they've had with that second seat, I think he made the best impact he possibly could have. He did the most with what he had, and he was really competing for like a top 5 finish, I want to say, before the car failed. So, Red Bull, we got to figure it out, man. You have too much talent on your roster to let these things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of people who need to figure it out, Piastri, that was a heartbreaker for sure.
That was so sad. I don't even think I comprehended that it was happening because we were so close to the race actually starting. It just felt like, of course, this is going to happen to the guy that was leading the drivers' championship, had some issues, but then also had some team dynamics that played into him falling down in the standings and then ended up finishing third when we all thought he was going to win the drivers' championship, only to come back really strong and then have this happen where he's crashing before even lights out at his home race. Just devastating.
Yeah, that it was really sad to see that. I think it's interesting this year that they have basically like a warm up prior to formation because that's when he crashed out. Um, I- that just it just sucks, right? It just sucks coming out of the garage and just going straight into a fence and that's your race, right? Like there isn't even unlike Antonelli who had that crash in quali and they were able to get the car fixed, which was also pretty miraculous because they weren't able to fix Carlos's car, who also was a part of that and who had way less damage than Kimi did. Um, so like it sucked for Piastri that there wasn't time for the team to even attempt to put the car back together because it was time to race. So really heartbreaking for Piastri. Really lucky for Antonelli, but I can imagine Carlos Sainz also was not thrilled because he had less damage and Williams wasn't able to fix the car in time.
Yeah, great points you bring up there. I was surprised that Williams wasn't able to get there with the car fixes. And probably even more surprised that Mercedes was able to rally and get Kimi his car back. And clearly it paid off their efforts because they got a double podium. Um, but yeah, moving into some of the lowlights, I guess, of the race. Definitely Williams' performance was one of them. Just neither driver could really get much out of the car. even when they were trying to push, it just felt like very labored and they weren't really getting a lot for their efforts. So I guess we'll see how the next few races go, but it's not looking good in these early stages and is kind of confirming what we were expecting coming out of preseason testing, where if they're going to make any moves up the table, it's going to take probably more than a few races for some improvements to happen.
I agree. I think also, I mean, Aston Martin was a disaster. I truly didn't even understand what was happening, where they're like, "All right, we're gonna retire the car," and then all of a sudden the car came back out of the garage, and I don't know how many times Alonso I felt like I was like, "Okay, he's retired," and then, "Oh, no, he's, like, back in the race," but he's, like, how many like, wasn't he, like, 12 laps behind at one point, or was that Stroll? Like, somebody was, like, 12 laps behind, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, what is happening here?"
Yeah, that was baffling to me. I think it's just such a big indication of where Aston Martin is. Like, they're treating this as practice. Everyone else is here to compete, right? And fight for the title. They're not even in a position where they can try to be competitive, which is so sad, but did make for some really entertaining commentary. It was really funny to hear the race commentators commenting too on Aston Martin disappearing and reappearing on the track. And I mean, credit to both drivers because I think that Stroll had said he was only going to be able to do 15 laps, which he doubled his predicted number of laps. So maybe that's something positive they can take away from that is just more time in the car and more of a trial period. Otherwise, what a hot mess.
Yeah, it was a bit of a disaster. I'm curious to see what happens this weekend. I maybe they'll be, like, 5 laps behind. I don't know, there might be some improvement, but it's not looking promising
Maybe
at all.
baby steps for Aston Martin. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I think one of
Disaster.
the other highlights was Arvid Lindblad. He did so well for his F1 debut, out qualifying and like, finishing, Liam Lawson, which just incredible, right? And I think it goes towards a bit of what we were talking about last week of, Arvin's background and his experience, and I think he just gets the car a lot better than some of the other drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Credit to him and also credit to you for again your accurate prediction of his performance. So you're 2 for 2.
I should have won
But
a
it was
lottery
great to
ticket
see.
or
I
something last week.
You should have. You should have. And now whatever happens, I think is just going to be based on your predictions. So we'll use that as our litmus test for the season. Um, but I did see on the VCarb socials, how happy the team was when he came back to the garage. They were just so proud of him, and I think he was obviously really proud of himself as well. What a great debut for your first F1 race. Um, yeah, I think great things to come for Arvid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Okay.
did actually wanna talk about a comment that Leclerc had made on his radio, where he had said something to the likes of, "This is like having a mushroom in Mario Kart," which I thought was such an interesting comment because obviously it's hilarious. Um, but I would love to know, like, do you think that he was happy with the new regulations, or is he saying, "This is like a mushroom in Mario Kart, like, this isn't real racing?" What was your take on that?
I I think okay, just given where he finished, I'm gonna say Leclerc is probably like, "This is great." This feels just that the extra, like, again, getting that mushroom in Mario Kart, and you're just like, and you're just going. I think compared to Ferrari last year, and especially kind of how the year ended, I think Leclerc and Hamilton both looked really happy with the way the car is performing. Are they happy with and I think, yeah, actually, I think from an interview I heard of Lewis after the race, like his post race interview, he was talking about it being a fun race and he enjoyed it. So, um, I think, the overtaking chances and stuff like that are making it fun for the drivers as well who have cars that are performing. I feel like Alonso and Stroll probably don't feel anywhere close to where Leclerc and Hamilton feel right now. But I at least from what I've seen, I think they're enjoying it, but it is really early, right?
Yeah, good point. It is really early, so I guess we'll see how that evolves. But I agree. A lot of the drivers did talk about how much they enjoyed the race and that it was fun. And obviously, these drivers like to race. That's what made them excited to get to this point in their career and strive towards Formula One. So when you have regulations and a car that is built to encourage more of that, I think everyone benefits. So yeah, great early signs, and let's see how things go from here.
So this week also marks the first race for F1 Academy this year. And I I'm personally learning a bit about F1 Academy, but I watched the last race of last season in Vegas, and it is so much fun. F1 Academy, for those of you who haven't been introduced to it yet, is um, head up by Susie Wolf, who's Toto Wolff's wife. And Susie is used to be a race car driver. And her whole thing is she wants to bring more women to the sport and make the sport a lot more inclusive. So she started up F1 Academy. So you have 18 drivers, and they're all there's 6 teams. Yes, 3 per team, and each of them are sponsored by a different company, and most of them are like F1 teams. So you have like Alpine, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, so on, so on. But you also have some other really cool brands that are sponsoring drivers. So this year we have Sephora, which I think is amazing to see, a brand that's so female centric for the most part to be there. Last year we had Charlotte Tilbury as a makeup brand that was on the grid there. You have Lego, Gatorade, American Express. So just a lot of really cool big teams that are big names that are there to help put some money behind these girls and help them succeed in F1 Academy. So it's the first race this season. One of the really cool things about F1 Academy is every car is the exact same. So in comparison to F1, where like obviously each, team has different engines and different aerodynamic structure and all just kind of the different things. With F1 Academy, they're all like the exact same car. I believe they're smaller, so they're more similar to like F4 cars. So they aren't as fast as F1, obviously, because you have younger drivers in there. Um, and they're all the same. So everyone kind of has an equal competitive advantage. So it's really testing who is the better driver. So you have your free practices, you have quali, and then you have 2 races, which is a little bit different from F1 itself. So the first race is really cool because they take the grid from the quali, and your top 8, so kind of that top half of the grid, it's a reverse grid. So they take whoever was an eighth and they go first, and that's the way they do race 1. And then race 2, which has more points than race 1, is then based off of the actual quali grid. So yeah, and one of the other things with F1 Academy is each driver gets 2 years in F1 Academy, and after 2 years, you've like graduated essentially from the program. So that's the maximum time they can race for. And at the end of the season, whoever wins, they get their next year of like racing development and stuff like that all paid for. So it's a really interesting part of F1, and it's a lot of fun to watch these girls go out there and put their hearts out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think one of the best things about this is we're at a time where we're seeing so much progress towards equity in sports. We have all of these professional women's leagues that are across all of these like team sports, which is amazing. And yet we're still seeing a lot of resistance in some areas to that progression. I mean, I'm sure we're all watching the Olympics. We know how that went down with women's hockey and men's hockey. So it's great to see that there's still so much interest in progressing, racing and getting women, to a place where they can be, put in a position where they're on a global stage, they're getting the exposure they need to grow their own brand and grow their career, and we're seeing that buy-in from big brands as well, like you mentioned Sephora, Lego, as well as your typical racing, uh, cars and stuff like that, so that's really nice to see, and, um, I'm happy to see that we're still, like, able to like, have a spotlight on women and their talents, and other people are also interested. I mean, I only heard amazing things about that last race in Vegas last season. I heard it was one of the most exciting races that people had watched, period. So if that isn't a sign to start getting into F1 Academy, I don't know what is.
Absolutely, and it's just yeah, like, it's fun to watch, it's amazing to see these girls in such a male-dominant sport to be there and to, like, getting to meet the drivers, interact with them and stuff like that, but also to see how many of, you know, the drivers and teams that are championing this, right? Like, Susie Wolf is definitely the one spearing everything, but you've seen, like, Lewis Hamilton, like, watching the races and talking to the girls and, George Russell, and, like, just all of the drivers that are so supportive of of these young girls.
Yeah, that's amazing to see.
Yeah, and they also have really cute merch, so, like, very unlikely, but if anyone from, like, F1 Academy is for some reason ever watching this, please make the merch more accessible for us because they had a really cute, like, Hello Kitty F1 Academy jacket last year that was all, like, sparkly and sequins and whatever, and I really wanted one, and yeah, was not available to buy online. So if anyone out there is listening, please make it available.
Yes, please do so that we can wear it at our next podcast. So it's possible that we may have a bit of a change to the race calendar, and I guess less of a change and more of cancellation. So it sounds like by the end of this weekend, we'll know whether the Bahrain and Saudi races are going ahead, obviously due to current events in the area. Um, so we'll keep you updated on that. But I did want to give Kimmy and Isaac a shout out for being hilarious because it sounds like they had almost leaked the decision before anything was confirmed by any news outlet because people overheard them talking on a plane. So, shout out to our young drivers for keeping things interesting and not being very well media trained.
You know, I kind of almost expect it from, like, George Russell, who I feel like has been, like, just he's been the one giving everyone, like, the piping hot tea and doing all the Lord's work when it comes to all the gossip with F1. But looks like the new kids on the block are preparing to take over that role for George. So
Yeah, they're ready to make life difficult for him. And actually, Tosh, I don't know if you saw this, but um, Kimmy had, I guess, some fans that were trying to get things signed outside of his car. He was being transported to the hotel. He didn't have time to sign everything, and so he wrote on his phone a note to say, "Come to X hotel, the hotel that both drivers were staying at, and I'll sign stuff for you there." And he held it up to the window as a kind thing to do for the fans. Obviously, not great for his own safety or George Russell's safety, and then we got a great shot of George Russell getting out of the car to go into his hotel and just being shocked by the number of fans that were out there. So he has his teammate to thank for that welcome.
that's just it's so cute because, like, Kimmy, Arvid, right? Like, they're just so young, like, Ollie, right? They're, like, so young, and I don't think particularly Kimmy, like, understands, like, how famous he is, and I think he just kind of, like, still feels like, "Oh, like, oh my god, I have 5 fans, like, let me let me sign this, let me tell them to come meet us here, and I can get to know them," and it's like, "No, no, sweet summer child, that's not how this works."
Yeah, totally. Just the lack of awareness is hilarious. But Kimmy, please look after yourself. We don't want you to get mobbed by fans, so we need you to get a little bit better for your own safety at the very least.
Alright, so this weekend is the Chinese Grand Prix. It's gonna be the first sprint race of the season, so that will be exciting to see how that goes. And, you know, some of the fun quirks, I would say, with this Grand Prix is it has the longest straight, I believe, in out of all of the tracks. So, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with these cars with the new regulations. Are we gonna have people just completely drain out their batteries in the middle of the race? Who knows? But there is a likelihood of something like that happening with this race this weekend.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. I think we're either going to get a lot of overtakes and it's going to be really exciting and fast paced, or we're going to see what you're saying, where we're going to have some drivers that are not adapting well to the new regs at all, and it's really going to show when you have such a long straight. So let's see. It should be really interesting and should be a good proof point for the rest of the season for sure. And you mentioned that we have our first sprint race of the season as well, which qualifying actually just wrapped up today. So we have in our top three George Russell, surprise, surprise, followed by Kimi Antonelli in second and Lando Norris in third. So that is how the top three places on the grid will be looking for sprints.
Yeah, I think Antonelli got a little lucky there. He was potentially going to be subject to a three-place penalty on this one, but sounds like Lando helped him out there from his testimony from to the FIA. Um, so yeah, Antonelli's just seems to have all the luck these last couple weekends. A little sad for Lewis to lose out on that P3 spot there. But we'll see what happens. I think it'll be an exciting one.
Yeah, definitely. And you bring up Lewis, who I think won this sprint last season. Um, but if he doesn't win this one to go on and win some other races, that's a trade-off I'll take for this season. And we do have him in P4, so anything can happen still. It's definitely not a done deal for the Mercedes.
Yeah, you never know. My motto going into this weekend is I am going to be Delulu for Lulu. And yes, Lewis Hamilton, I'm referring to you as Lulu. I'm putting it out into the universe. It is the race is happening in China. It is the year of the horse. It is going to be Ferrari's race. I just think so. I think Lewis is going to end up with a podium. Dare I say we're going to have a double Ferrari podium? I don't know. We'll see. But that's what I'd love for it to happen. And again, am I Delulu on this one? Probably. But is anyone going to talk me out of that? No. No. I'm going to sit here and live in my delusion, and we'll see what happens this weekend.
I love it. I would love to see it. We've been starved of a Hamilton podium for much too long now. So no time like this weekend to break that dry spell. I would love
100%.
to see that.
Yeah, I hope it happens. I will probably cry if it does. Um, but I just need to see Lewis on the podium again. It has to happen. It's been too long. My little Ferrari heart needs to see Lewis and the Ferrari up there.
Okay, I'm gonna think very carefully about my prediction this time for the Chinese Grand Prix. I will say I think we'll still see either Antonelli or Russell in first place, and we'll see them take the title in China. Um, but I think Hajar is going to surprise us again this weekend. I'm expecting him to come out strong. I'm hoping that Red Bull has figured out what they need to figure out to at least get him to the finish line. But I think we saw a great, encouraging start from him in Australia. And barring any disaster with the car, fingers crossed, we'll see him in top five, which I think he's very capable of getting there.
That's a bold take, I think, just given, like you said, we've seen what the quali looks like for sprint, and we have Max in P8 and Isaac in P9. Um, we have Gasly in P7, so the fact that Max and the Red Bull got outqualified by the Alpine would not have been on my bingo card at any point. Um, so
Yeah, a
that's
little embarrassing, I guess.
Yeah, but that's a take. I would love to see Isaac do really well, particularly with, the curse that we've seen with the Red Bull second seat and how he really, if it wasn't for the engine, he would have performed really well last weekend. Um, but hot take, Alicia.
I think this is how the rest of our episodes are going to go. You're going to give a balanced, realistic prediction, and I'm gonna come through with the hot takes, and you know what? A broken clock is right twice a day. One of these predictions is gonna happen eventually.
I'm really happy you think my prediction is realistic of having a double Ferrari podium. I'm really, really glad someone thinks that because I don't think anybody else out there thinks that that is a balanced take, but I would agree
You
with
know
you. I
what?
think it's
It
a valid
could
take.
happen. It could happen. I think now more than what we've seen in the last few years, Ferrari is really on the cusp. So if there's ever a time to double down on that prediction, I think it's now.
Fingers crossed. I hope so. They just need to figure out how to do strategy, and once they figure that one out, or like I don't know, maybe just let Lewis do strategy as he drives. Feels like it's probably going to go better than how it currently has been. So just Ferrari, figure that piece out, and
Yeah.
we got the double podium this weekend.
And then
So
it's over. It's
that's it. Yeah,
over for everyone.
yeah. The car is going to move back up. It's going to happen.
So that brings us to the end of another podcast episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. And don't forget to rate and review us on the podcast listening platform of your choice. And we'll see you next time with another episode.
Bye.
Bye.